In the summer of 2005, Israel fulfilled its strategic decision to unilaterally remove its civilians and military from the Gaza Strip, bringing an end to almost 40 years of Israeli presence there. The decision entailed tremendous financial costs, ruptured the spiritual fabric of Israeli society, and incurred significant security risks. Nevertheless, Israel hoped it would promote a positive process of change with the Palestinians, allowing the Palestinian Authority to assume full security control over its territories, to demonstrate state-like behavior, and bring about peace, quiet, and prosperity for civilians on both sides of the border. Unfortunately, this was not to be. By the beginning of 2006, parliamentary elections brought Hamas to power, a successful manipulation of the democratic process by anti-democratic forces. But its newly achieved stature did not influence Hamas's radical worldview and policies. Apart from Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, Hamas now makes up the entire Palestinian government. Yet it still refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist, to cease terror attacks, or even recognize previous agreements with Israel. Following the formation of the Hamas government, and despite the absence of any Israeli presence in the Gaza Strip, terrorist attacks continued, alongside an increasing rate of arms smuggling into the Gaza Strip. Hamas's force buildup is part of a larger context in which both Hamas and Hezbollah receive indoctrination, financing, training, weapons, and intelligence from Iran. On June 25, 2006, Hamas further escalated the situation by launching an unprovoked attack into sovereign Israeli territory, killing 2 IDF soldiers and kidnapping a third named Gilad Shalit, with the express intent of holding him hostage and using him as human ransom. Just 1 year would pass before Hamas would once again push the region into unprecedented chaos by launching a violent overthrow in the Gaza Strip, killing, exiling, and persecuting fellow Palestinians associated with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas. This violent move was severely criticized by both Arab and Western leaders. Yet, rather than leading to moderation, Hamas' control of the parliament and government only encouraged greater daring and extremism. Radical Islam was now being freely indoctrinated among the people of Gaza, infusing the masses with hatred of Jews and Israelis, and inciting to further violence. Hamas' radicalization of the Gaza Strip and its constant momentum and escalation did not go unchecked. Effective Israeli security measures, together with international pressure, brought about an Egyptian-brokered State of Calm agreement in June 2008. Yet rockets continued to fall in Israeli territory and weapons continued to flow freely into Hamas stockpiles. During the second week of December, Hamas unilaterally terminated the State of Calm agreement, clarifying its intentions by initiating a barrage of rocket and mortar fire into Israeli territory. On the final evening of Israel's 2005 disengagement, an IDF officer locked the last gate between Israel and Gaza with the intention of never returning. The Palestinians no longer had the Israelis to serve as an excuse for continuing their attacks. Since then, instead of striving for a final status agreement with Israel, Hamas has marched directly into confrontation, escalating threats at every opportunity. Every state has the explicit obligation to protect its citizens. No state would stand by idly while a terrorist entity along its border victimized its civilian population with rocket and mortar attacks and carried out a forced buildup through the illicit smuggling of massive quantities of weapons and ammunition that not only endanger but actively target ever-growing numbers of civilians. Operation Cast Lead is a reaction to Hamas's actions, a necessity incurred by Hamas alone. It is interesting to juxtapose the methods used by both sides. While the IDF makes every effort to avoid injuring non-combatants, Hamas intentionally targets civilians. The IDF develops doctrines and uses sophisticated weaponry for precision attacks to limit collateral damage to a minimum. Hamas, on the other hand, aims its weapons at civilian population centers to inflict as many casualties as possible. While the IDF engages in high-intensity military operations, it allocates considerable attention to the well-being of Palestinian civilians, facilitating and supplying humanitarian aid. Hamas cynically uses its own civilian population as human shields, behind which it hides weapon stores and fires rockets into Israel. Hamas has traditionally taken Israel's restraint as weakness, but Hamas is mistaken. This restraint stems from the strength of Israel's defense forces and the resilience of its society. But tolerance cannot come at the price of innocent civilian lives. Since the beginning of Operation Cast Lead, Hamas has drastically increased the pace and range of its attacks against Israel. Within the context of its right to self-defense, Israel is and will remain unwavering in its commitment to ensure the security of all its citizens.